Hey guys, it's Graham. Welcome back to Truckerman Reads. Did a little bit of trucking, did a little bit of reading today. Anyway, I stopped by the comic books store, comic shop, on my way back to the terminal and had a bit of a panic. Like, I get my email that says, hey, here's your polls for this week. Cool, I'm tracking all that. And I was frustrated because Geiger hasn't released an issue in like 2 months. And it's really hard to find any explanations as to why. My assumption is always they fell behind schedule with artwork or something or other happened. I doubt that they're going to run out and be like, hey, we're going to be late on this one. I assume that hurts sales long term, but it also just really annoys me when it keeps getting punted. And so this issue of Geiger, which I believe was supposed to come out in September, we didn't get a September, we didn't get an October, and now it's like, okay, it'll definitely come out 11/12. Like, cool, I put it on my personal nerd spreadsheet of books coming out throughout November. It's like, I'll finally get to read Geiger on November 12th. Nope. I see my email and it's not on the pull list. I'm like, what the heck? So I go and check the company's website. No, it got pushed back again to the 26th of this month. It's right before Thanksgiving. So I don't actually believe that it's going to happen until it does. We'll see. But in the meantime, I had 4 other books show up. I got Redcoat. I got this new Marvel 1776 book that they're doing, 2 Spider-Man books, and Transformers. So it's still going to be a really good week. We'll see how that goes. This weekend, the new version of The Running Man is coming out. The one starring Glenn Powell. I like Glenn Powell. Apparently, people are really polarized on him. If you see the comments under one of these trailers, it's like, oh, cool, Glenn Powell. Or also like, why are we casting this guy? It's like, we? This dude's been in like 3 movies in the last couple of years. Maybe 4, I don't know. I don't track this stuff so closely anymore. But it looks like from the trailers that this is going to be like maybe as exciting and thrilling as the 1987 version with Schwarzenegger, but a little bit more grounded. My main question is, how is this movie going to end? Is it going to end the same way as the book, or are they going to go a little bit more American and give it something of a melodramatic, happy ending? If you are not familiar with The Running Man, there's a reason why I'm emphasizing this one here. I have read the book. I read it back in probably '09, because I hadn't read it when the Hunger Games came out, and it got a lot of comparisons to The Running Man, like Hunger Games did. And Stephen King had a lot of praise for the Hunger Games. He's like, this is cool. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'll check that out. It was obviously going to be different in scope and content, but also in tone, and the ending was, typically a King book, where it was kind of nihilistic and yeah. So I'm curious to hear if they're going to change that at all, or if they're going to stick to the book and say like, okay, this movie's going to end the same way that the book did. So spoiler warning for all of that. But I was thinking about it today as I finished reading the book that is going to be the subject du jour, which is this Dead Man's Run, this Auto Duel Chronicles Book 1. I read an Auto Duel Car Wars, whatever. I don't know the official name of the series. I'm just going to go with Car Wars. I read a Car Wars book earlier this summer, the Convoy of Chaos, and I really enjoyed it. That one was an anthology, and I typically don't read anthologies. If I do, I usually don't finish them all. But this one was really cool, and this was my introduction to Car Wars, even though I had this first book, the ebook of it, on my to-read list for years. But after reading Convoy of Chaos, because I got a review copy of that for Upstream, I was like, okay, I really want to get into this, because I want more car fiction, action fiction, and the story in this one is a race. There's an underground illegal racing culture, but in addition to racing, it's also like you put guns on your cars and stuff and you shoot each other, and apparently that's what the Car Wars game is all about. I've never played the game. I don't have any plans to, but I like these 2 books that I've read now. But as far as the plot for this one, the main character is, I think his name is Jesse, but I just tagged that his handle was Burnout. All these guys have nicknames. Burnout Foster, and his co-driver was T-Bone. They just have kind of tough '80s hokey action names, but the characters, by way of the writer, take it seriously, even though it could very easily be a cheesy thing. And I like that. There's nothing wrong with a ham and cheese sandwich, but take it seriously. The plot of this book is similar to The Running Man. This guy has a reason to get in this game. Obviously, he needs the money. He goes and does this underground race. And much like The Running Man, he gets partway through it before he realizes that the contest is rigged. There's a huge purse at the end of it. And the people running the race obviously don't want to give that purse out, at least not to the wrong person. And so they put their thumb on the scale and they control it. In a sense, the Hunger Games did the same thing with the career tributes from Districts 1 and 2. You're not supposed to be able to do what they do, but they do it anyway. Red Rising had a similar thing with its institute. Somebody was rigging Darrow's year at the institute to benefit another student. And so this is not an uncommon trope for this kind of story where there's a contest of some kind, and our protagonist, who already is facing high odds but begins to excel, soon realizes through one means or another that the contest is rigged and decides to throw himself against it, or in the case of Katniss, herself. But with this Auto Duel Chronicles, this Car Wars story, they want to have more of an upbeat direction to take it in. So without spoiling it, I can just say that this one, which I'll jokingly nickname The Driving Man, it's more upbeat in the end than The Running Man is, but that's not to say that it doesn't have teeth going through the story. Content-wise, obviously there's plenty of violence. There's implications of sense or sensuality and sex and all that stuff. But the main character, he's moralistic about that. Even if he has the opportunity to reap the fruits of prostitution, he chooses not to. That kind of thing. He goes from town to town in this race, and he's popular, and women start throwing themselves at him. He's like, "Yeah, that's not my thing." It's like, okay, it's typically you'd expect a protagonist in a story like this to be like, "Oh, of course, why wouldn't I? Life's too short, etc., etc." But hey, you could have a character with a reason to not do that, and him just flat out say, "No, I don't do that." Okay, cool. It shows us something else about this character that makes us want to root for him. Hey, he doesn't use and lose people, even when it would be convenient and on some degree satisfying to do so. Anyway, I drove out into the weeds. Let's get this car back on course. Spoiler alert for The Running Man. The main character, Ben Richards, he has to compete in this 30-day live manhunt to get a whole bunch of money for his family, $1 billion. But there are also in-game markers that he has to hit. He gets bonuses for staying alive longer. He gets bonuses for killing cops. It's intense and it's bloody. But there's a revelation before he gets to the 30-day mark that the wife and kid that he was entering the race to earn the money for, that he had back home, they're dead. Somebody broke into his apartment and killed them. And that changes his decision, or affects the decision that he makes at the end of the book. He hijacks this plane and crashes it into the tower where the headquarters of the gaming company is, which on some level is still a victory for that character in his particular contest, but he doesn't get what he set out to get. And obviously it's sad that his wife died, his daughter died, he died. It's just overall a nihilistic view of the future, and a lot of King's books go that way, which is why I stopped kind of seeking them out after a while. One of my really good friends is super big on Stephen King's books too, and he was always hyping them up to me, and I was like, yeah, there's a particular feeling that I'm looking for when I read fiction, And I've talked about this before. Like, I'll even read a well done tragedy if there's a point to it and there can be something edifying through it. But King was trying to slay some of his own like personal demons. I read his on writing book and his autobiography with the themes that he was chasing in his novels, especially during those days. That might have been, this is not a jab at the guy, but this might have been during his cocaine era. He's been, well and frank about that. He was frank about it in his autobiography. So just saying that might have had some impact on the themes and the vibes and the feeling of his craft. But anyway, all of this is to say that these two books complement each other. There's a bit of a contrast, obviously, in terms of genre, but also in destination, as they're both about games. They're both about, one of them, the Running Man's game is technically legal, whereas the Car Wars game is not. But these guys are doing dangerous, deadly stuff for money for their families, and one ends well, and the book on the other end has more of a tragic ending. But we'll see if the movie ends that same way. Let me know what you think. I assume that'll land on Paramount in a couple of months. I tend not to go to the theaters for films like that, but I'd still be curious to see it at some point down the road. And if you've watched this far to the end, thank you. And be sure to check out the link in the description for my novel Fossil Force on Amazon, especially if you have young readers in your family. They will dig it. Drive safe. See you out there.